All right. Welcome to On My Block Packers podcast. I'm your host, Mike. Well, we have a special guest host today. Mike Flanagan is back. Former Pro Bowl center for the Green Bay Packers, future Packer Hall of Famer. Mike Flanagan, how you doing, Mike?
I'm doing good. Thanks for the plug there, but
I'm gonna keep fucking plugging it. It's like I already blew this show. I'm gonna keep plugging it till it happens.
I'm looking at the clock. 22 seconds to get it out.
Okay, listen, we're talking preseason football. Like you and I are offensive linemen, so preseason means something completely different to us than everybody else. But just take us back. You're a player. When I say preseason football, what are your real thoughts on preseason games, prepping, all of that stuff? Like, how do you remember that?
I don't want to say a waste of time, but there's a little bit of
candid.
You kind of, yeah. No, I mean, you know how it is, man. You have to get it rolling. You have to have some. You can only simulate playing against another team so much, so you need a little bit of time. But I mean, the need for 4 or 5 games for the younger guys for sure. But the reality is, when you're an older guy and you got a family at home and you're pretty established, last thing I want to do is, no offense to St. Norbert's, but go sleep in a small little dorm. Although you were a hell of a roommate.
I was going to say we had some great times there. What are you talking about?
We had some great card games. That's some damn funny stories. That's for sure.
I'll tell you what. Hey, so I got to do a quick read for our sponsor, Bet Online. So Bet Online is the fastest and easiest way to wager all of your favorite sports, contests, and events with first-to-market odds and lines. Find reviews and news for every league, including Major League Baseball, NFL, NBA, NHL, combat sports, esports, AG's thing, and even golf. So Bet Online continues to be the top online resource for all your sports information, from live in-game betting, props, and futures. Head to Bet Online today or use your mobile device to join today and make your first sports bet. Use our promo code BELIEVE50, BLEAV 50 to receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Bet Online, where the game starts. Mike, you live in Las Vegas. There was some news coming out today about John Gruden nixing a potential Tom Brady thing. What do you think the odds would have been on that? In the Super Bowl for the Raiders, Tom Brady and Gronk show up.
Knowing Gruden and how he loves those, old QBs, especially a guy of his obviously Brady's stature. I'm surprised he got nixed. And I'm also, you got to figure out the source. Dana White may not be the most reliable of sources.
But I think Gronk was like, yeah, because he was on Gronkcast during the UFC fight. And I think Gronk was like, yeah, it was going to happen. It's pretty. I mean, now were you? I think you were in Green Bay when Gruden was there, right?
No, I missed him by.
Did you miss him? Okay.
Yeah,
I've never crossed paths with him except when he was like doing TV announcement. And I'll tell you what, the guy's an absolute riot. Like, I actually love, as far as character goes, the guy's something else. But to nix a Tom Brady deal, even though you might like Derek Carr, and there was a deal like, do you like Derek Carr or not? And then I think they ended up building houses right next to each other in Las Vegas before he got axed. So they're boys, right? But can you imagine if Tom Brady and Gronk would have been? Can you imagine if Gronk in Las Vegas when they're doing well? Oh,
oh God, that guy would have killed it. But I have a hard time believing that the GOAT, I mean, hands down, one of the greatest players ever to play the game at any position in any sport, really, to say it almost happened. But maybe almost is a very, relative term. It could have been that we had some open discussions and that became almost, or, Dana White, a PR guy, Gronk is essentially a PR guy. Maybe he got blown up, but how the hell do you blow that up if it is?
I know. You think, because Dana White's involved, my first thought is like, well, they'll probably want Tom to like buy into Zuffa or whatever, whoever owns UFC. I mean, you just start going like, there's so many things that could happen when you're in Las Vegas anyways, as you well know, that he could have sweetened the pot in a number of different ways. He probably owned part of a hotel. He probably is Randy's boss next time we see Randy.
You talk about Brady going anywhere, there's going to be some pot sweeteners. I mean, just the attention and notoriety and everything else that he brings. I mean, you hear what was already talked about, the Miami Dolphins were brought into play, all the stuff that, has been going on. And that would have been funny to see in Miami, see him trying to probably pulled himself out of the owner's box and go play. So I'm better than these guys still. But
you know what? I think that would be the problem. I mean, like, I was in Miami for a couple of years. It's not. I don't want to say it's dysfunctional. I think everything. It's very fluid, but it wasn't the most functionally sound place I've ever been a part of as far as football goes. So
sometimes it takes obviously a ton of money, but just because you have money doesn't mean you know about football. And it's a hard dynamic to do. I mean, obviously Stephen Ross has been successful in a million different things in life, one of the richest guys on the planet, but doesn't mean he knows how to put a team together. Doesn't know he eventually, I'm sure the business side of it will win out because as he does with everything, but doesn't make a good football team always.
Well, you know what happens too is you hear about like the best leaders in the world. People are super successul. What do? They try to delegate and empower, right? And then you start got to ask yourself questions like, well, who are you putting in charge of? Who are you delegating this authority to? And then you start looking around like that. At least in my experience, that could have been part of the issue. But Listen, because you're offensive lineman, we're going to do offensive line takeover today. So here's how we're going to format this. We got to talk Packers and Saints. So Packers beat the Saints 20-10 this preseason game. I just want to go like really briefly over like the skill positions because we really don't care. And then we're going to go right into all the trench stuff. All right, fair enough?
Absolutely. Go for it.
Okay. So, hey, real quick, let's just talk skill talk. Last week when Jordan Love came off the field, he had 3 interceptions, two touchdowns. And when I watched the tape, like I know those receiver mistakes, and Aaron Rodgers is doing a really good job of like covering for Jordan Love as far as they're running the wrong routes, they're doing this stuff right and wrong. Like the problem was timing. Because when we look at things, it's like, do you look confident? Do you look like you have command of the offense? Do you have timing? He didn't have that last week. Jordan Love had it this week. Now his stat line wasn't great. It was 50%. He made a couple. There's some guys made some plays for him again. Dobbs was out there. Winfrey was out there making. Juwan Winfrey was out there making plays. But from a timing standpoint, he looked so much better. And I was just trying to think back. Like we had Doug Peterson, you had Matt Hasselbeck, Aaron Brooks. I can't remember if you might have had maybe Mark Brunell, some of those guys before. I can't because you were 2 years before me. But when you had young guys coming in from a preseason standpoint, or these backup quarterbacks, was there because you're playing center, you're kind of the quarterback of the offensive line and the rest of the offense. Was there anything that people were whispering in your ear as far as coaches go? Like, hey, man, we really got to worry about this because we have a younger quarterback in there?
Oh, always. I mean, excuse me, especially in the preseason when you don't know, you don't spend time scouting much on the other team. You watch a little bit of film on them, but you're not fully diving into what they do. And also the coaches do talk beforehand. So whoever was the head coach talking with the other head coach going, hey, just don't blitz us on this situation or don't do this because we know you're going to kill us. So there's always a little bit when you got a younger guy come in, you got to make sure your communication is a little clearer. And that, if there's a little bit of information that you could normally, I wouldn't have to, I mean, like playing with you or playing with Brad or Marco, there's a lot of nonverbal communication that would go on. Yeah. And all of a sudden, you guys, I mean, I felt the next year when you and Marco were gone, there's no more there could be nonverbal communication, but it means I'm talking to myself. The guys next to me have no idea what's going on. So you got to be crystal clear and make sure to enunciate your words very clearly so everybody gets on the same page. But it's just, anytime I had Brett behind me for 5 years, and go ahead and insert a joke right there. But you get accustomed to certain things. You put a new guy in, so things do change up every once in a while.
I think I just remember very specifically. I think it was my second preseason game. We were down in Miami, and I was like, we've talked about how bad I was, but I'll never forget Tom Lovat. This is like after Tom and Mike were just like, two deuces to you. We're not playing this year. We're not coaching you. I remember he walked over to you. You were in the game. I felt bad for you, but you walked over. You were in the game. And we were playing against like third string slappies. And coach was like, I don't care what they call you, better go to wall every time. I was like, right there. I was like, man, I really don't know what I'm doing. This is pretty bad.
Hey, look, I had a similar thing when we played. Remember, we played in Tokyo that one year, playing in Kansas City, and that was the very first first game I played in after breaking my leg. And this is 2 years later, and I don't think I've had one conversation with Holmgren the whole time I'm there. And we get down to the goal line. I had a holding call or had an offsides call, and then we're on a sweep to the left. I got run over, but it looked like it was a holding thing. Yeah. So I'm coming off the field after it was a touchdown. They got pulled back. Holmgren's following me, mirroring me all the way down the sideline. I'm trying to avoid him. Yeah. Are you trying to get the dumb F of the year word on your first day back? God damn. I'm like, wow, I really didn't need that one. I mean, you're playing Red Rover on the line, trying to break through the line without Mike in there. That's hilarious. I'm trying to not put my helmet on sideways because the first game I haven't played in so long.
Oh no! So I was there when you put your helmet on sideways. So we'll go nostalgic real quick. But Frank Winters, Chewy, and Brett. Let's just say they showed up like 30 minutes before game time. It was against the Oakland Raiders at the time, and they were not in great shape. And no. Frankie had like a personal foul, a holding call, and like a false snap or something like that. And Holmgren's like, "You're out of the game, Flanagan. What?
No,
you're in, strapped up, ready to go."
And Frank, there was another guy there.
Deli was there.
What?
Frank, he was just the first person he saw. And Frank, I just never forget. This is when Frank Winters was legendary to me. Like the second day I was there, he goes, "Can I go home?"
My other one I love about Frank is when Holmgren gets after us, like, you got to make that. You go make that block. I can't make that block. Like, good job.
Trying to reach a 3 technique or something, right?
Yeah.
Oh man.
Only Frank could do that.
Go ahead.
I'm just having Frank flashbacks when they played in Toronto and Brett missed curfew, and so he comes home. He can't go to Brett, so he goes to Frank. What were you doing today? Hey, if it wasn't for me, he would have been 3 hours late instead of 2.
Hey, listen. I was trying to. So Dobbs is turning some heads at training camp, and then Juwan Winfrey had a good game, and you start thinking about these young receivers because we don't get to see any of the veteran receivers right now. So everybody's talking about these young receivers and are they going to be able to add to the offense. I was trying to think back. We had Corey Bradford came in my draft class. I think Driver was the next year, but he was kind of like Corey's guy more than like his own guy at that point. He's like a 5th round draft pick, late guy. Didn't really know he was going to be what he turned out to be. I'm talking about Driver now.
Yeah.
We had Juwan come in. He was a 1st round draft pick. I'm just trying to remember guys that did anybody ever come in? Maybe it was Bubba, and I know he's a tight end, but did a receiver, a skill guy ever come in where you're like, this guy's going to get it and he's going to get it really fast?
Yeah, you know what? I had Ferguson had that. Robert Ferguson had it was more of the persona than anything else. Maybe I bought into the tattoos and the pit bulls a little on his arm a little bit too much, but
he was very sure of himself. I loved him.
Yeah, but no, I mean receiver. It's funny. Some of those skill positions you have such a confidence about them, short memory and a lot of confidence. But somebody to come in like really blowing it up. I mean, I know obviously Javon Walker came in, showed a lot of things, knew he'd be pretty good. Ferguson, but no, it's just a hard because you have to get timing with Brett. You have to get timing with Hasselbeck or whoever was, at that point. And that takes a little time to develop. And quarterbacks, sure enough, all it takes is one drop in a situation where he clearly should have caught it. That's all it takes for Aaron to go, well, next time, all things equal, I'm going the other way. So that's what we saw.
That's what we saw in the San Fran game. It looks like, at least when we talked in the playoffs last year, when he's kind of had his eyes trained onto Davonte. But I always thought that Bubba, and I know he's playing tight end, but because he could come in, he was a serviceable blocker, a willing blocker early on. He was a red zone target. He made the Pro Bowl, I think, his first 3 years in the league. He was a guy that came in. He was just, University of Miami was kind of tight end U at the time. They had all those guys coming in. He was a guy that I thought really showed up early and often. But I just remember like Driver. I remember the first year Driver was there. You go like, oh, okay, he's a nice guy, and the whole thing. He's kind of got an interesting kind of look, and the way he moves is a little bit different, but. I never knew he was going to be as special as he was,
No, it's hard. Well, obviously they drafted him in the 7th round. Not many people did. Obviously seeing those guys, knowing, and that's why they have 20 guys watching college, every college practice, every college game, to actually be able to predict that sort of thing. But those are the gems that made Ron Wolf and, whoever was, if it was Ron and not Sherm we drafted, that's what makes them good at what they do.
Yeah, Schneider, Dorsey, all those guys. You think about the tree that Ron Wolf has, unbelievable, right? And you hit on a couple of those, man. It's like careers made. It's awesome.
Oh, yeah.
Kingmaker. Ron Wolf is a real kingmaker.
Yeah.
So, hey, let's go to trench warfare. Let's talk about offensive, defensive line. Now, look, the first thing, if AG was here, we're going to talk about running backs. And there's a good competition between Goodson and Taylor right now for that 3rd running back spot. It's super hard when you're looking at this stuff. And I'll just talk offense first. Like when we talk offensive line, we've got our starters in for pretty much the first half, at least into the second quarter of the game. And, we're missing Bakhtiari and we're missing Elgin Jenkins. But the guys that would start day one are in the game. And one thing you kind of, I look at least is like, if our starters are in, we kind of expect to dominate them if their star players aren't in. So they had a couple guys that were playing. They had Kavarius Street from San Francisco was in, Tuttle was in, but like Cam Jordan's not playing. Mario Davis isn't playing. So you kind of think you're going to open it up a little bit. You got your 3rd string or 4th string running backs in. It's not like it wasn't just all you can eat. Like sometimes you hope it's going to be, but it's really not going to be that way, is it?
No, that's once again it goes with timing, and obviously not having the breakdown of what the call was versus the play. Sometimes it could miss assignment, or sometimes it could have been a bad read, or sometimes it just could have been you got the starters in front who are going, just get me through a couple plays and get me out of here. There's a million things it could be, but when you don't have your tackles there, it makes it tough. But those interior guys doing that was you'd like to see a little more consistency when they're not playing against the stud number ones, but at the same time, the mentality for a preseason game is just tough it's not the same thing as a regular season game. So give the guys a little bit of a break on it. Now, if it came out the next week and they did the same game against backups, then you start going, maybe it's something we got to worry about.
Yeah, the problem is now, like, none of these guys actually, so they really get to work against the ones during the week because they do the joint practice. Like, they really don't get anything now, but you think about Dobson, or excuse me, you think about Goodson and Taylor competing for that 3rd spot. And, when we were kind of at our peak, we had 3 running backs. We had AG and he was by himself, but we also had Najee and we had Tony Fisher, and those guys, not only did they come in, but they came in and they were averaging 4.5, 5 yards a carry. They all kind of had, I was trying to think if they had their kind of niche plays. AG was kind of the power guy, but then was Tony like a screen guy, a third down back? Najee could kind of run everything. I remember him breaking off a huge run off a 17 stutter against the St. Louis Rams back in the day when we couldn't piss a drop in the bucket, But I don't know. How do you remember that as far as like, were we, when certain guys came in, were you thinking like, okay, we're definitely going to start running these plays, or did it matter?
No, you definitely. I think your recollection is correct. I mean, AG was, we're going to run. We're going to pull you around to the right side. He's going to follow, and that's what it is. I mean, what was it, 25 out of 26 short yardage plays that year that we got? Only missed that one. I think it was. We'll just say it was AG's fault since he isn't here. But no, Najee was that guy in the north and south, one cut, like straight ahead runner. So if you get him a sweep and get him a hole, he's going to be a tough guy. And the Fish, I remember all the stutters, the screens, that third down kind of stuff. He was really good, being patient with it.
Do you ever remember a time? So do you ever remember a preseason game and you had to play against like a good player? And then you show up to the game and he's not playing. Like, do you remember that happening?
Oh yeah. You get psyched in for one thing and then it's something else.
I remember we were playing the Miami Dolphins and Daryl Gardner. No, so Daryl Gardner, the first time I was going to play left guard, you were in, and it was just my second year in the league, and he I said something to him because we ran a play on third down where he basically inside rushed me, and you were there to stop him, and I said, you ain't whatever, and I just remember him going, oh yeah. And the rest of the game, he stayed in, like a starter stayed in until the fourth quarter to beat my ass. So then 2 years later, I'm feeling myself now. I feel pretty good. He's coming. They're back up for a preseason game, third game. I'm going to give it to him now. I got really, really hyped up for this game, maybe more so than I would for a usual preseason. It was personal, right? Because he had beat me really bad. And then something happened that night, and he slept on his bed wrong and hurt his back. He didn't play. And I remember that's when we came up with, that was when we started using the term meat puppet. Because the guy behind him was so bad comparatively so meat puppet or handlebar, whatever you want, like it basically meant that the guy was just giving his chest and hand for those that are listening. Imagine having two handlebars where your nipples are, and we could just grab them whenever we wanted and hang on for life. So this guy, this poor kid got the nickname with our team, Meat Puppet, because Daryl Gardner decided not to show up on the hype train that night.
The only thing you're not doing is to give you a little. Daryl Gardner is one of the most intimidating human beings in my life. I mean, the first time I saw him, we were at the combine. We came out same year, and I walked on the elevator, and he was on there, and I literally went, oh. And took a step back. He was so scary. I'm just walking in the elevator with the guy. Yeah. But I looked over something about, when he went to Denver, he was there for short term. I don't know if you remember that one, but I look over, got a new tattoo. Holy my God, that's the whole Bible written on his arm.
Yeah. 310 pounds, six pack. You got a problem, Mike. You got a problem.
Dude, unbelievable. I mean, that guy was, if there's a freak of nature, that was one of them, that and Spellman. Those two guys.
Yeah. Spellman. Yeah, that's funny. So, couple observations for this game. Number one, so they moved Royce Newman to right tackle. Okay, they put Jake Hansen in at right guard. I love the way. Just a general statement. I love the way that our offensive line tries to play with extended arms. So when they get into pass part, they punch and extend. They're not, because listen, we know that defensive tackles, defensive ends, they're trying to get into your body. They're trying to get into your elbows and armpits. So if you can play extended, you're giving yourself leverage, you're giving yourself time to recover. And our guys, Jake Hansen does a really good job of playing extended. Royce Newman, he's got to work on his strength a little bit, that play strength. That was something that we came into the season last year, being a rookie out of Ole Miss. Hey, you're going to develop that body. He is developing that body, but it's going to take a little bit longer, I think, to get to that strength where you can really anchor down and not be a liability kind of from that bull rush, especially the right tackle position. And then I think, generally, listen, if you have good pockets early, what are we looking for from an offensive line? You go back into the room or you go in at halftime with the ones, you go, are you creating good pockets? Is Love have enough time to throw? Yes. Okay, that's probably number 1, 2, and 3. And then 4, are you creating some holes in the running game? It could have been a little bit better. We could have got some movement, a little bit better movement on our double teams. I thought the backside was great as it has continued to be over the last couple of years. But, it's stuff to build on. Zach Tom, I don't know if you've been watching it all, Mike, but Zach Tom was a draft pick this year, I think, out of Wake Forest. He is a phenomenal athlete. He's a guy who runs like a sub 540. He's 300 pounds. Kid can move, he can bend, he can do it all. They've put him kind of all around the offensive line during training camp. He played right tackle in the second quarter. This is one of those kids that you're like, okay, he can play. He might not be able to play tomorrow, but he can play pretty soon. And there was a whole series where they started running that outside zone, man, and he was literally eating the lunch of this 3 technique. I mean, planted on his back. Oh, dude, put him at 7-8 yards behind the line of scrimmage on his back, like 2 or 3 times in a row. Oh, dude, it was so much fun to watch. And like offensive line, that's porn for us, right? Oh my God, you got him 10 yards back behind the line of scrimmage. You dumped him on his ass. Oh my God, here, have ice cream. Like, what do you want? Keep eating more.
You don't see very often where you guys get rolled over on their back. I mean, it happens, and sometimes you guys dump it off, but it happened multiple times in a row. But getting a 3 tech, that's one of the hardest blocks in football is getting that 3 tech, because all they're supposed to do is stretch and give you the distance and have him. That's pretty impressive. I'm guessing that the guy watching the film on the other side isn't going to have his job for too long, but you get humiliated like that
you don't. You're like somebody was saying they were playing against the JV team, and I'm like, look, dude, these are first of all, they're grown ass men and they're professional football players, so let's just take it easy. But you don't know if it was second, third, fourth team, because I don't care enough to pay attention to their roster. I was thinking about what the hardest block is on the backside, and like, I'll be interested in your perspective. For me, that inside zone block against a 2-eye where you don't get center help for a guard, and that is a tough. For me, that was a tough block. I'm guessing for you, it's probably harder on the play side, like a reach or something, though.
Yeah, especially usually on the first center, the snap hand, hooking that guy on your shoulder that way. So you're down a hand and reaching across your body and you lose a lot of power. And the only way to move to the right with the snaps, I got a crossover, and the crossover is where you give a lot so you can get bowed back. But that puts you anytime on an inside run like that, or running away from you, but to the other side, it's hard to get your head inside. They put him there for a reason to make it as difficult as possible. And sure enough, he can either crush the hole or crush you back. And so I like the idea now to see guys, especially do it in Green Bay more, so chip off to the backside and use that to push the other way. Having the center give a little help there. So the 3 technique
ricochet off, yeah.
But
yeah, you know what the hardest thing too is, like, we always talk technical now, but like I even saw this today. I was watching a practice, and you ever you're trying to run like as outside or mid zone, and you get your head across, and you feel like you have leverage. So what do? You start turning your whole body back. Then they play over the top and beat you. Like, that's still like, it's the most, when you watch it on tape, it's like the most obvious thing in the world. But when you're in the middle of it, man, it's really hard to stay on that, like on those railroad tracks. It's hard to stay on that track, even if you think you have the guy leverage, because you think he's going to get pushed across. So you're trying to fight against him. Like, when it looks good, or when it looks good on tape, you're like, oh, this is easy. But it's really hard.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, you don't see the same thing that AG or whoever the running back is. You don't know exactly what he sees, but you think you get that edge. You're supposed to get him hooked like that, and then all of a sudden he cuts back into the hook. Well, it's because the receiver didn't come down on the block, so that guy's running free, so he's running away from him, runs into. Hey, I did my thing right. Why didn't that go? It's a little gotta worry about, check that team mentality a little bit. I got my guy.
Yeah, and but at the same time, that is kind of the toughest thing about the sport, because like, I remember when we were like 1-5, and we had just lost to the Titans. Remember that one year we were really bad? We ended up making the playoffs. But I remember that, somebody asked me, like, what are you going to do to get better? And I go, I just kind of was like quiet for a minute. I'm like, I don't think I'm playing that bad. Like, I think it's going to come around. You know what I mean? Like, I don't really think I don't know what's happening. It's not working, but you can't really figure out why. Like, you're winning your individual matchups, but collectively we're not winning our collective matchups. It's a weird deal. That's it's a team sport. Like you said, 11 people, 22 on the field, refs, grass, weather, all of it, man.
Well, you got, as you said, you got 11 guys in the field. 10 do their job perfectly. Still doesn't mean it's not an interception or a sack or a tackle for loss or a touchdown for that matter. It's just that's part of the fun of team sports. Is, relying on everybody else and really try to come together and do it together. Try to explain that didn't work.
I tell you what, the hard part is, like, so the first unit goes out. They bring in 2 guys. So they get rid of Myers and JRJ. They bring some new guys in, and like Jordan Love takes a sack. Offensive lineman. He took a sack on one of them.
He held on.
Yeah, he held on too long. He's scrambling when he doesn't need to. The pocket didn't collapse, and then he took a sack in the next play. And so, like, you drop your 2 best guys. The new guys come in. Kid takes 2 sacks in a row, and you're just going, like, we've been there, man. You know how bad you get back on the sidelines. You're just like, well. It ain't gonna be a good night tonight. You better call mom and see what's for dinner.
Check that ego at the door and develop some thick skin real quick. So
dude. Hey, listen, Bakhtiari's coming back. He got off PRP. He's a 5-time All-Pro. I mean, the guy's arguably the best offensive lineman the Green Bay Packers have had in the last 50 years, right? I mean, the guy's amazing. Because we were all like, we look at our ages when we came into the league and kind of where we all are. You and Marco were a couple of years older, but really we're kind of all in the same boat, right? Yeah. So it wasn't like, it's like Bakhtiari comes back, and I think like, oh my God, I think the influence that he can have as a force multiplier for the young guys and his professionalism, and just like he's all, it's like I don't really even know how to say it. It would be like if, I played with Walter Jones. When Walter Jones walked in at practice, all of a sudden, everyone would be like, "Oh, that's how it's supposed to look every time." You know what I mean? Have you ever had anybody like that where you're just like, "Oh, well, that's what it's supposed to look like every time"? I don't know if it wasn't really like that for us.
Well, there was time. Remember when? Obviously Favre's that kind of guy, but you can tell like when he come in practice, it was live, it was real, it was legit. Like all of a sudden, we're really working. Where before, like, wow, Brad will get it. But I mean, no offense to you or Marco or Chad or Tausch, but I never played with the guy of Walter Jones, like Hall of Fame caliber on the offensive line. Obviously, on the other side of the ball, I saw Reggie. There's a perfect example. Reggie was practice, going through the motions, all of a sudden he comes into a game like, oh yeah, we got this now. But yeah, that was one of the funniest guys in the world. Too young, but great guy.
Yeah, no, it really was. Let's switch over to the defense, man. And we drafted Quay Walker with our first pick, and a lot of people, it was controversial, whatever. I mean, it's good. He knows what he's doing. Obviously better than you and I do sitting on these microphones. But I'll keep talking while this thing dies out on me. Sometimes listen. This is part of the joy of being on a podcast. Is sometimes the cameras don't work like it's supposed to. But Chris Barnes is a guy that got drafted. He's a UCLA guy. Got drafted a couple of years ago. Started almost immediately and has played really well for this team. So they draft Quay, and you start going, listen, from a physical standpoint, this Georgia linebacker can really do some unique things. But Chris Barnes, Isaiah McDuffie, they're both showing out in the preseason. And Quay Walker's one of those guys. He kind of reminds me of Nick Barnett in that he's coming in. I don't know if he's light or he plays light, but he doesn't take on downhill blocks very well. He can't get off linemen. So he's one of those guys that's kind of like making tackles 10, 12 yards down the field. And I just don't know, for me, like I want the guy in the game that can stuff the run, for a 2 yard gain or no gain or get, 2 yard loss. But when you remember, I was just trying to think of like Nick Barnett's first season. I think he came in, and linebackers were bigger back then. So I think he was like 230 or 235. Like, do you remember? I mean, I remember my reaction when they put him at middle linebacker. Do you remember what you thought? And I haven't said all this. Nick was a hell of a good player.
Yeah.
It turned out to be a great pro.
But yeah, no, Nick was, could clearly sideline to sideline it, but coming downhill was not what. I think once or twice he caught me off guard coming downhill because you get so used to him being so fast and running around all over the field. If I didn't take like perfect steps to get out on a sweep or something, I'd know. But yeah, he wasn't going to be a downhill guy. But then every once in a while, as he, as the swagger got better, he became a more proven player. He'd come downhill and pop you every once in a while when you weren't ready for it. But yeah, no, he was. At the time, I remember thinking he was more of a glorified safety, which didn't give him enough credit for what he did over the course of his career. But at the beginning, that's kind of what I thought. So he was still learning, and you could get him on the edge, and he wouldn't come downhill. He was dropping before he was coming down. So it's just those things. You got like that. He'll be okay in the future. He got really good, really fast.
Yeah, and he put on some pounds too. And I look at Quay Walker. Like the guy certainly has a skill set. It's obvious. But you got to. I mean, if you can't stack and shed in this league, man, it's gonna be tough because guys will find you out. And one thing I think that offensive coordinators are doing a better job now, if you look at the last couple of years, is like it's not just going to be about their schemes, and I'm not going to change for anybody. I'm going to find the worst person on your team, and I'm going to exploit them. And if you're the worst person in the run game, like, hey, guess what, buddy? We're going right at you every time until you prove you can get off my guard.
Well, that's what coaches. That's what we did when you and I would break down film. We look for who's the meat puppet, who's where do we can go at it, and that is, I mean, the great and bad of NFL is that you'll get exposed, good and bad, either way, and it's not going to take long to figure out. I mean, I remember that whole when Beck when he found that when we were playing against Tampa and they'd get into that wide nine, then we knew that meant they were coming this way, and we saw it twice in the game. It was 2 touchdowns, I think. It was 60-yard.
Oh yeah, that big game down in Tampa. I remember that. Yeah, I remember it well. It was 98 handoff solid, right? 98 handoffs. Yep.
Anything you get, any little bit of information like that, it's just. I mean, when I talk about going from the layman going from a 9 to a wide 9 or to a 7 or a wide 7, whatever it was. Just that little bit you're talking about where the guy on the end of the line moves the stance 6 inches to the left or 6 inches to the right. We know that play. When it comes, everybody's rolling that way. They're slanting against it. We're going, where do we go? Sort of thing,
It's amazing. You think about all of the preparation that gets put into by the coaching staff and all, they relay all that information. And then also the advantage that you can have as a center, myself as a guard, really at any position, just by understanding what the person across from you, what their stance means, where it is, what hands down, where their weight is, have they switched weight on their feet, have they squared up, all of these things, all these external cues mean so much. And like as an added bonus, it gets you to stop thinking about like all the bad stuff that could happen because you can focus on like, oh, this X, like if he does X, he's going to do Y, and I can react to it and win this round.
Yeah, no, but that's the difference between winning and losing in this league. Is that you find that little bit of information and you exploit it as long and as hard as you can. And if you can't fix it, it's going to keep coming. There's no. I remember Donatell. They always bring that fuck the safety down weak. And the second Nile would go from an A gap to on my shoulder, we'd know what it was. I mean, before the safety even came down. So calling that, I remember telling that to Ed halfway through training camp. He said, "Have you done this the whole camp?" And yeah. He goes, "Well, that explains a lot." It just kind of walks away. But you figure, it's your own guys. And I know I'm going to see it that many times, but
it's just a bunch of PE majors like running around out there with whistles and and coaching us, man. It's unbelievable. You knew that the whole time? Well, yeah. Ed, I graduated from UCLA.
I got.
Hey, listen, let's talk defensive line. The Saints always have a well-coached offensive line. They've been good for years. I know they got a couple different pieces in place. They actually drafted the guy, Trevor or Tyler Penning, who was a small school.
Fights.
Yeah, he's the kid that keeps fighting everybody. He actually looked pretty good, though. I got to give him credit. So we learned a couple things this week. First of all, our other first-round draft pick from Georgia, Davonte Wyatt, he can move, but he plays a little bit high, so that's something he's going to have to improve on. Look, coming from college is a whole different. I think the jump from college to pro is harder than the jump from high school to college. Is that fair? At least that's probably because where I played. That's probably because where I played.
Well, yeah, sure. I mean, when you guys were wing T, weren't you? Yeah, way to bring that into. The speed of the game, and you're high. If you're a high lineman playing high, not in the marijuana sense, but that'll definitely. It definitely can make you irrelevant real fast because the low guy always wins. But the jump from high school, that's just you're 17 and 18, still turning into something else, and everybody's still in your age group. Now you're playing against real men, man strength as we call it.
Daddy strength. Yep.
Yeah. So, that jump. So, there's another jump to take it from playing in the NFL to being good in the NFL.
You're absolutely right. God, I feel like it's funny when you look back, you go, man, I literally tripped on every step. That's great.
Yeah, exactly. I tried to get fired at every level. No one would do it.
I know. Gee, it's unbelievable. So we drafted the speedster pass rusher, Kingsley Edigbari, and this kid shows up. He didn't really show up on the film last week. This week he does show up. He beats that kid. He beats Penning twice for pressures. He gives one of those ghost Von Miller pass rushes on the other side. The right, I don't even know the right tackle's name, man, but I'm telling you, he literally fell on the ground. He whiffs and we have a problem outside of, you got Preston Smith and Rashawn Gary at outside linebacker. The guys that are backing them up have not really delivered. They didn't deliver last year. I know there was a lot of talk about drafting a guy this year at outside linebacker to back up those or to be a rotational player. This kid needs to go into the second string lineup right now because he's just got some sauce to him, man, on the pass rush side. We can teach him all the other stuff that has to do with the run game and playing the edge and making the cues. But if a kid can pass rush, it's like Kabir, man. Get him on the field. Find a way to get him on the field and make it fast.
If you can do one thing really well, and that's if you got that fast first step coming off the edge, it's hard. That's about the most challenging thing there is because as you get farther away from the ball from guard to tackle, the athletic skills of your opponent become exponentially better. The big fat guys that can hold their spot. You paid Bowens and Derek Gardner got $5 million a year just to make sure you didn't move. They grab on both of you, hold you tight, and that was all they had to do to let Zach Thomas run free.
I used to remember we used to play tractor trailer and Keith Washington in Chicago, and they would just be doing the centipede and stuff like before the game because they didn't work on pass rush. What pass rush moves? They didn't care at all. I'm going to be right here every play. I'm not going anywhere.
I actually got to hang out with Truck for a little while at a charity thing in Oklahoma a couple years ago, and he's like, yeah, what second I knew you were coming back, I wasn't going anywhere. All I was supposed to do was make sure you didn't push me. And he looked at me like you were going to push me anywhere. I knew Mike was going. We were just there to do our job, just basically just hold up and make sure I'm not moving. Okay. He said, I get paid not to move. What do you want? Like, good God.
Best thing about that guy, side note, is he played linebacker in college. He ran like a sub-5. Like, he was pretty.
Was he like? Yeah, he was like a All-American, and was the first round played for Broncos first, right? As a linebacker.
Yeah, man. He just decided he loves pancakes, I guess. I don't know, man.
Oh man. Oh, that cat is he was so big. I was after we've been retired a few years. He had to be close to 400 pounds. I mean, that's not.
Listen, I remember hitting Ted Washington. I remember playing Chicago. And, Blue 80 Bloody said hi. And you guys were sliding to the right. So I got Ted by myself. And I remember I punched him like 4 times. And he's like, hey, man. He goes, hey, man, you can stop punching me. Like, the play is over. And I couldn't see around him. So I didn't know the ball was gone. I literally, it was like when they make a fat guy sleeping with his wife, and this is what it looks like from the back. It's like, sticking out. Like, dude, that's what I look like. It was terrible.
I still remember watching when we were playing in Chicago. We're watching from the end zone film, and Ted, we're coming towards the camera. Ted's in a point stand, so all you see is his butt, and we only have 4 linemen because you cannot behind him. All you see is both cheeks and his cleats. It's like, my God! I mean, you literally you could not see me so big. I mean, it's 400 pounds. I mean, 6'7", 400 pounds, and you're 100 pounds lighter and maybe about the same height.
Hey, let me ask you this: what kind of defensive line gave you the most trouble? First of all, were you more nervous in the run or the pass? Because you had I always tell people you have the best hands in the business, right? So pass pro, you almost pissed me off because I was like, man, pass pro so easy for you because your hands are so good. But like, what players gave you trouble? And was it harder for you in the run game or the pass game?
Chris Jenkins and all over the place. That guy you went down to Carolina, you saw him every day, but that guy at Haynesworth when he wanted to play, there's the big guy,
two same bodies, tall, long arms, 330 pounds, explosive.
I remember last time I played against Haynesworth in Tennessee, it was a block. I was a counter, so I was blocking back. Marco was pulling, and he just rolled me up over the pile that's behind me, and he's laying right on top of me. And I looked up at him. We're face mask to face mask, and I'm like, 330. He goes, I haven't been 330 in years. That was it. I mean, but it literally, Chris Jenkins is the other one. I remember hooking him, trying to get him on an out sweep to your side. I get on the edge, and you can just see him. It almost looks like film, like he's just biding his time. Then he goes, oh, there's the ball. Picks me up, throws me off the screen, and that was it. It was like a cartoon. But those guys there's guys that are 300 pounds, and there's guys that are heavy 300 pounds. And Chris always one of those guys. He's a heavy 330, 350. That he was just solid, and you could just kept feeling like if you hit him, you're just almost like a little gnat. I mean, he had me by almost 100 pounds at that point. But
Chris was. I don't think he'd mind me telling you this. I remember he started a season. I want to say he started the season at like 335, 340, but by the end of the year, my first or second year there, he weighed like 396.
Oh yeah. No, I don't.
I mean, that's a lot of weight to put on. And like you kind of noticed, but he was such a big dude. Like, you're like, you're still playing pretty well, man. Like 400 pounds looks good on you. So I've literally never said in my entire life, but 400 pounds looks pretty good on you.
That was always one of my, playing Chris, not so much with Chris, but with Albert Haynesworth. It was whatever I do, made sure not to piss him off. Compliment him. He's a great guy. How you doing? Good to see you. Oh yeah, you got me on that one. There's no point in pissing guys like that off because they're gonna take 4 plays off, and then they're gonna make you look so stupid on that 5th. He was really that guy that like, all right, okay, I got you next time. And then he would forget the ball, would blow me up backwards, and the ball would be out. He'd still be trying to push me back, Brett, and the ball's 20 yards downfield. But those were the guys that really been the hardest. They weren't consistently effort guys, and they were big. So you wouldn't know. I'd get 5 or 6 plays, and then they decide to go. 5 or 6 plays, then they decide to go. Then I think, hey, this is the 5th or 6th play, and then they wouldn't go the next play. They would. Those big guys that are lazy. Really
you and I are kind of the same build, so we kind of have we have the same issues as far as if you get a big, well, you know what I mean. If we're 6'5", 200, somewhere between 285 and 300, depending on what day it is. But I remember Haynesworth and Rugi was playing center. It was a preseason game. I can't remember. It must have been 2003, 2004. He must have been hurt, or maybe you're playing tackle. I can't remember. But
either way, yeah.
But Haynesworth's and so Jeff Fisher's on their sideline. And Hainsworth and I had already gotten, like, we'd mixed it up a couple times in our careers. And something happened on a bull rush. We started talking to each other, and we ran a screen, and I earholed that son of a bitch so hard. And he got up and just swung and just tried and literally hit me in the helmet and tried to knock me out through my face mask. And so, of course, now I'm laughing because, like, what an idiot, he hit me in the face mask. Now we're going back and forth. And it's next play. I we break the huddle. I go, Rugi, you might want to take a look over here. It's going to get ugly. and so I'm blocking him, and Doug, whoever's they throw a pick. So I'm running down the sideline, and it's going towards Tennessee sideline. So I'm running, and at the last minute, like, I spider sense, like, Hainsworth's going to try to kill me right now. And I'm right next to Fisher, and I look, and Hainsworth's coming right at me, and I sidestep him, and we just, like, glance each other, and we butt up, and Fisher gets in, and I'm just like, and I'm thinking, I should have gone to Jeff, like, hey, I think you just saved my life. Thanks, man. Yeah, he's that dude. He was that guy.
Yes, say I should have said thank you. I'm sorry for having done that to you, Mr. Hainsworth.
Oh my God. He was a mean dude.
Yeah, that was having to deal. But remember we played against Detroit and Brett runs all the way downfield on the screen. He's playing like 20 yards, and he goes and Chris Spellman for nowhere ever. Spielman, what is his name? First name Chris.
Alonzo Spellman.
There you go. Yeah, and so we see it happen. Like, oh no, don't do it! And we got to sprint all the way down just to make sure he doesn't kill Brett when he's done. I'm like,
what I remember from that play the most, we've talked about it on the show before, was the next play. We get back in the huddle at Tauscher because he was playing against Tauscher, and he was like third string at that point. It wasn't even, but he was mad. Tauscher's like, "Thanks a lot, Brett."
Yep. Brett always thought,
nice.
we like lives on the line to protect him, but he's like, "I'll just get him pissed off." Come on,
man.
Stop John with sap. Stop doing this. Just do your thing. Don't make my job harder than it needs to be.
Hey, we got to get off my long statement, Mike. We've done this before with you. I want to start with this. Roughing the passer penalties, right? Like, Jordan Love got one on like the third play of the game. 97, like, touched his helmet. Get a roughing the passer penalty. We're getting a little bit old. And here's honestly what I'm worried about. My kids play soccer, so I got to watch a ton of professional soccer. And the behavior and this happens in basketball too. You and I are both basketball players. Like studio gangsters, tough, like Tommy tough guys, right? Because there's no consequences for bad behavior anymore. Yep. So back in the day, if there was like somebody was cheap shotting you, there's something bad going on, there was a little bit of self-policing on the field because, hey, listen, if you're going to cheap shot my guy, I'm going to get you. Like, one of us is going to get you, right? Especially pack mentality up front. And what I'm really concerned about is, like, they're taking away all of the violence in this sport now that isn't, like, completely crystal clear. And now we're going to get a bunch of soccer players running around out here not knowing how to behave.
Yeah. Well, I've seen a couple of times that flopping started to show itself in the NFL where they're, when you see it in slow motion, like, the guy didn't even hit him, but, bring attention, throw your arms in the air, whatever it is. But yeah, that's a little embarrassing for the sport as a whole, but theatrics are becoming more and more important, I guess.
They really are. It's like every time I think about fights, by the way, the only fight that I can really pops into my head every time was, I don't even remember this one, it was basketball. I think it was Alonzo Mourning is fighting Larry Johnson, and then Jeff Van Gundy runs over, and I think he was Alonzo Mourning. He's like trying to wind him up. Remember, he like grabbed onto his leg, he was like hanging on like a koala bear. That literally is the best thing I've ever seen in my life still.
Where ankle biter came from. Yeah, it was yeah. I mean, of all things to do, could you be more pathetic to go and dive at somebody's legs and hold on to him? I mean, granted, even if you were standing up, you're still only waist high, but this.
So Kayvon Thibodeau gets cut. I'm sure you've seen the play. I think unless I'm missing something, that's still a legal play. Like, tight ends could come inside out and still cut on the backside. He sends the tackle box.
As long as you get your head across.
Well, but because it's like it's inside out of the play. I think it's legally the way. You just can't go outside in, right?
Okay, I think so. Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean,
and everyone's outraged, fine, this and that. Everyone's furious about it. But here's the real sad thing. That's all a tight end can really do nowadays, unless you got like a Mercedes Lewis, UCLA product.
Yeah.
But all these guys are just slot receivers that are like 6'6", 6'7", don't know how to block. What happened? Like, there's a handful of teams that got fullbacks. Like, the real travesty is that we created this like H-back position for tight end. So, our H-back now, so you can go across and wham the defensive end instead of just getting fullbacks who know how to hit.
Yeah. Well, that's because these guys have become that hybrid mix of receiver tight end where they're, back to it creates such headaches. I mean, for defensive coordinators, but then it's like they're always trying to protect guys. You can only protect. Well, you can't have a guy that weighs 220 pounds blocking a 300-pound guy on a consistent basis and expect him to do something. You got to give him some advantageous help. You got to let him cut, or don't call the hold on the backside, or do something, because the guy's going to eat his lunch 99% of the time. He just happened to get that one, got in there on it. But yeah, they're trying to. There is a little bit of the safety nuances expanded from head to everywhere. Just because you cut a guy doesn't mean you're trying to end their career. But there's got to be some middle ground where you got to have guys that weigh 230 pounds. If you're going to block us, you got to give them something to make it a fair battle. That's just a talking verbal nonsense right there.
No, it's absolutely true, because you're absolutely right. You're asking them to do something that really, if you get down to it, because the rules are you can't block below the waist. So even like you can't hit him in the thigh. So then it's like, how easy is it for me to decrease my surface area if I know you can't go for my legs?
Yeah.
And the other thing is, like, and those guys are actually so bad at it that you'll hear some D tackles like, dude, I didn't even mind when you guys tried to do that, because usually if I could read it, it's actually an easy play. Like, it's an easy tack for me. I can get garbage points. Yeah. Right? It's like garbage tackles for loss, because guys don't really do a good job of throwing themselves when they're trying to cut.
Yeah, it's really, well, you can't, that's one of those things that games that you can't duplicate that. And so getting that actual practice playing against guys who they don't know whether it's high or it's low, and you need to how to play off that. It's a thing you don't want to do against your own guys, because you could hurt them in practice. So therefore it's a blocking technique that isn't frequently used and not done well, since you don't have time to practice. So it's something you're like, yeah, just get on the inside, just go ahead and cut him. Well, go ahead and cut him. The guy's moving, all over the place. But it's infrequently used, so nobody's really good at it. And usually when you're not good at it, either means you're going to whiff or you're going to hurt somebody.
Because, hey, in honor of this offensive line takeover, and I know you got to go. Our last thing here, I have a hero of the week. I just want to read this to you. So Hooters, and I know you were like, you remember when Hooters opened up in Green Bay? It was like the biggest thing in the world. God, what a great day. What a great weekend that was. But Hooters just signed 51 college offensive linemen to NIL deals. And the chain said, I'm reading this from the paper. The chain said it wanted to sign offensive line groups rather than individual athletes, and is now working with players from Auburn, LSU, Oklahoma, Miami, Georgia Tech, Missouri, Texas A&M, Vanderbilt, Florida Atlantic, and USF. Quote, for decades, the physical play, blue-collar mentality, and on-field leadership of the offensive lineman has shined, but national praise and attention for these crucial players has all too often been sidelined. We want to change the narrative and celebrate these elite student athletes who play a pivotal role in making college football so thrilling, and give them a fair share of the spotlight. That's from Chief Marketing Officer Bruce Scala.
Translating that means we didn't want to pay as much money for anybody with skill, so we're going to take the fat guys and we're just going to feed them.
Because I was just going to say, like, it just means we don't have to pay them a single dollar. We have uniforms and fried chicken.
That's all.
What else do you want? Unbelievable. Hey, listen, Mike, thank you so much for coming on. I know you got to run and pick up your daughter, man. It was awesome having you on. And for fans of the show, fans of Mike, Mike, I think your Twitter handle is idon'tdotwitter.com or something like that, right? Pretty much. All right. So you'll never see Mike again unless he's on this show or another show. But following him.
Or if you're on a social media account trying to talk to my daughter. That's the only other way.
Oh, yeah. That's the one way you do not want to see him. I promise you that. Jesus H. Well, listen, Mike, thanks for being on, man. We'll talk to you soon, huh?
All right. Thanks, Mike. Talk to you soon. See ya.